So it is kind of funny how people kind of get locked in. But one thing that Rob and I have worked very hard on in our adult lives is making sure we never got stuck. And because we know a lot of people who never change their listening as they age, and we refuse to be those people. And so we have, with our daughter, we have explored music with her. We've had lots of different types of we would challenge ourselves with different things and play different things all the time and be constantly inputting new media so that we never got stuck. And so with music, this was an ideal thing for us, because as soon as you said, hey, how about watching a documentary? And one of the best ways that I have found to change my opinion of someone, especially a musician, is to watch their documentary.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Set Listing Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson, and joining me tonight are two of my favorite people, the father and mother of Set Listing Bruce, Rob and Martha Southgate. Seeing Molly almost screwed me up. I'm like, wait, no, it's not Molly.
Oh yeah, I'm on her account. Yeah. Oh, I should change that.
Rob, Martha, welcome to the podcast. It is so good to catch up with you. We've already spent like 20 minutes talking to each other before we hit record.
Yeah, we're thrilled to be here, Jesse.
Yes,
this is awesome.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. So I'm going to have you guys kind of do your elevator pitch, but I have to say, a little bit first is, and I tell this story all the time, that when you guys invited me into your network and said, hey, do you want to talk about Doctor Who? I felt like I joined a family. And then I love the story of, I'm talking to Rob and I'm like, hey, I think I want to do a Bruce Springsteen podcast. Okay, if that's what you want to do, let's do it. And he told me just last year, right, that he hung up the phone and looked at you and said, yeah, Jesse's going to do a podcast. I think we'll get a season out of it, which is about 12 episodes, and 700 episodes 6 years later, I'm still talking Bruce.
That's amazing. You've done a tremendous job, and it is an amazing show. And it's the whole reason we started the network to begin with was, well, mostly for me to not have to listen to Rob talk about superheroes, but
I talk about Star Wars too.
You talk about lots of things, but now he has people to talk to, besides me. But the biggest reason was because we wanted to give people a voice and let them talk about what they're passionate about. And so it was like, people were plugging in like, oh yeah, I'll talk about that show, or I could do that. It's like, but what do you love? Like, what do you want to talk about? Passion? Like, let's give you a voice for what you love and see what happens. So that was kind of our the whole mission of our
and you definitely gripped it, Jesse, because we did not think about putting on a Bruce Springsteen podcast. I'll tell you that right now.
Well, I was sitting here on Sunday and I was talking to a physicist who has a PhD in Milan, Italy, talking about Bruce Springsteen.
Oh, wow.
And
that's so cool.
You're like, that was not on the bingo card. Like,
no.
like 5 years ago, you never thought, okay,
so
let's,
awesome.
And so we got a little bit of, I tweeted that, his episode will be coming up soon. And a couple of people who've been on the show before said, a PhD? Wow, I am officially the dumbest guy that's ever been on your show. And he replied back like, nah, a PhD doesn't make me very smart. Trust me.
Oh, I love it. It
was a lot of fun. So I'm going to start with you, Martha, tell us a little bit about yourself. And you've been on the show before, but just in case someone, everyone's podcast is someone's first podcast.
Right.
So tell us
And
a little
we've
about
changed
yourself.
a lot of where we are,
Yeah.
like from when I was then. My name is Martha Southgate, and I I don't know what I am, the co-owner of Southgate Media Group. And my current podcast is Broken to Brave, but it is Patreon only at this point. And I'm going to be repackaging it and sort of doing something different with it, but I haven't figured out what yet. But I had just finished season 2, episode 40. Well, Rob and I just finished season 2, episode 43. So we've been
That's
busy.
episode 43 of
just season 2.
Yeah.
So
So
we're coming close to 100 episodes.
Oh, that's amazing.
So we've been busy with that, and I finished. I'm officially an internationally certified bereavement and transition coach.
Oh, nice.
So I'm working on what I want that to look like, and so I'm kind of branching out to start that, and I'm not sure what I have a voiceover career since I've seen you last, since we did this last.
Nice.
So there are a lot of different things. We have a lot going on.
Yes.
And yeah, so that's me in a nutshell.
So Rob, tell my audience a little bit about you.
Well, I'm co-owner of Southgate Media Group, if we still call it that.
Yes.
It actually is still an entity, and your listeners may know this, but we kind of broke it up. We basically made everybody freelancers.
Right.
And the company still exists. In fact, what we're doing behind the scenes is we're rebuilding the website so that the entirety of the 8 years that we did will live there. So if you were a fan of Next Stop Everywhere, you could go in there and the entire archive should be there, which is really cool, right?
Yes.
It doesn't need to live in 800 different RSS feeds out there.
Right.
It can live at the website. It's great. And
yeah,
I know, as somebody who's a podcast fan, there are certain shows I listen to that I have to go to their website to listen to it. And it doesn't bother me. If I can click on it and listen to it, who cares?
Exactly.
So that's what that is. Let's see. I have not been podcasting since breaking this up. Very little.
No,
hold on. Boys, you jumped in. The only thing I've been doing consistently, the only thing I've been doing consistently is Broken to Brave, and I always call it Martha's show because it really is.
Yes.
I am just comic relief, or the questioner, or I don't know what you'd call me on there. I'm your husband on it.
Yeah,
but it's really Martha's show.
You're her trusty sidekick.
I am. I really am.
Yes.
I'm her companion, Jesse.
Yeah.
See?
Mm-hmm.
She's the doctor. And so it's been that's really all I've been doing. I as far as shows that are still existing that I do, we've got Alley Chats, but I haven't had any guests for a little while. And then we also have Go Fund This.
Yeah.
And then what I'm really working on is I also picked up another teaching gig. So I'm a college professor. I teach digital marketing right now, and I just picked up another class. I'm going to be teaching marketing management to senior level, which is amazing. I am super jacked for this. I can't wait. But really, my focus has gone away from the content creation, even though I love being creative, and that's really what this all started with. Is really moved into the business side of things. So I haven't talked about this on a show yet. I am officially launching a consulting business. And it's really cool. I'm not going for, hey, let me teach you how to start a podcast, even though I can do that. That's, if somebody comes to me and says, oh my God, I want a podcast and I don't know where to start. Great. I can walk you through all sorts of stuff. Here's my free book, which is about to come out as a free book.
Yeah.
It's more for the professional podcaster, the seasoned podcaster, the experienced podcaster, somebody like you who's like, man, I've been doing this for a couple of years. What I help you with is social media marketing, digital marketing, figuring out how we take you from point A, where you may have been idling for 8 years, to point B, C, D, whatever. It's kind of a mix because of what Martha's been doing with her coaching. It's kind of a mix of coaching and consulting, but it's mostly consulting because people want to talk to me about what I know, right? Whereas coaching is about what you know, and we help you unlock it. I am going to do some of that though, because I tell you what, I was talking to one person recently and they were asking me all these questions about like, how do you make money at it? And I just kept reflecting it back to them and they had most of the answers.
Right.
I think they were just scared to say them out loud or something.
Yeah.
And once they said it, it was like, oh, that's what I do. It's like, yeah, that's what you do.
And Jesse, you know that what he was juggling, it's like he couldn't, if he had one podcast, he could have done all those things he knows how to do. But juggling for, 125 over those years, it's like he couldn't put any of that.
Yeah.
And so it's been interesting for him to kind of taper it down and go, oh, this is really cool.
And as far as the podcasting, I am going to bring back New Media Lab, which is my business one.
Right.
And then I'm going to have another version of it that is specifically for this consulting.
Good.
And it's going to be all business. So you'll be able to listen to it and get tips about how to do your Patreon, how to do a Kickstarter, how to market your show, how to do the artwork.
We have to talk about
all
Bruce
that
Springsteen.
Stuff. I know.
We will. We're going to.
He wanted to hear about it. And it's
did.
like first chance putting it out there.
I do.
So anybody that's interested in podcasting or has a podcast and wants to do something, reach out to me. And we'll put that at the end, I'm sure. We'll put it in your show notes, right, Jesse?
Yes, we will.
All right.
So pulling back the curtain, originally we were going to do to celebrate kind of a last hurrah of Southgate Media 1.0. I have no doubt that Southgate Media 2.0 will happen sometime.
Yeah, it's coming.
We were going to do a marathon, an extravaganza of recorded shows, and we were all talking about what to do and where we're going to have it, and so I reached out to Rob and Martha and I said, hey, as part of this, I'd love to interview you guys. And we're saying, okay, and what do you want to talk about? And I said, well, I know you're not the biggest Springsteen fans. It's not like you dislike Bruce Springsteen, but it's just not in your current wheelhouse. But I know y'all love entertainment. You'll love movies. Have you seen the film Western Stars? And both of you went, no. And I said, well, why don't you watch Western Stars and then I'll have you on to talk about it. And you both said, sure, that's fine, Jesse. Well, because they're both kind people and always say, anytime you want us on the podcast, we'll have you.
That is true.
So,
but also we love music.
Yes, you guys do.
And we love documentaries.
Yes.
So you kind of had us, no matter what.
You hit us on a number of buttons.
You had us on so many levels.
So just in case you are a fan of Rob and Martha, a couple of basic facts. Mike Springsteen listeners will go, yes, but you always have to worry about your audience. In June of 2019, Bruce Springsteen released a studio album called Western Stars, and it was a very different album from him. It was very much in the land of Jimmy Webb, Glenn Campbell, almost Burt Bacharach, very different. And then he released a film in October 2019, which basically is him doing the whole album at his barn on his property. And when you say barn, it's a barn. And then in between songs, he did little snippets of dialogue that he wrote. He got co-directing credit along with Tom Zimmerny, who often does Bruce's documentaries. So for those of you who came in, that's the catch up. before we start, just give me your general thoughts about Bruce Springsteen before going into this, and then your thoughts just cold going into, okay, we'll watch this film. And I'll start with you, Rob.
Okay, well, my thoughts on Springsteen first. Is that what you ask? Okay.
Yes.
Well, I've never been a big fan. I like songs when they come on, but sitting through a whole album didn't usually capture me necessarily. But I don't mean any disrespect there. It's not like artists that I don't like.
Yeah.
I always liked him. I liked what he was doing. I can tell you what I didn't like, but who cares? You guys love him, right? Yeah. But what I didn't like was absolutely personal preference. There was just this something.
Yeah.
But then like albums like Nebraska, I've heard and gone, wow, this is really a fantastic album.
Yeah.
I really loved when he did the Seeker sessions. I thought he did a wonderful job on that.
Yes.
And I had that Bruce Springsteen live, that 3-disc set.
Yeah.
I liked it. I didn't love it,
right,
but I liked it. So my relationship with Springsteen was always, I respected him. I thought he did, I could understand why people loved him. It just didn't connect for me.
Yeah. And I there are other people like, I acknowledge maybe that, REM or, like I like Tom Petty. I recognize his genius, but I've just never been someone who immersed myself in all his music.
Sure. I get that.
And I think the other thing that we talk a lot about in consuming pop culture these days is you can't listen to everything and you can't watch everything. So you have
I've been trying, Jesse. Come on.
But you accept the fact maybe that, this show looks like it's going to be amazing, but I just don't have time to watch it yet,
Right.
So Martha, how about you?
Okay, it's a little unfair that you had me go second because
I'm sorry. Well, I'm going to go back.
He's actually intelligent and actually knows things. And I just sit here and go,
no, Jesse's right. No.
I listened to him in the 80s. Like
now she doesn't care what the temperature is.
All right, I didn't talk over yours, dude. You're not allowed to talk over. But yeah, I listened in like in the 80s, like I guess it was the 80s, like
sure, Born in the USA, like everyone in America was listening to that
it, right? And like in my hometown, is that the song?
Yeah.
I like songs like that. I'm not a fan of songs like Born in the USA.
Right.
And when we talk about this documentary, you're going to see very clearly where I lie because they all sound this, I like emo dirges, and so this was perfect for me.
Okay. Good.
So where I was sort of, I wouldn't say I disliked him. I would just say sort of indifferent or really not on my radar.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny that you mentioned Tom Petty because he absolutely was. And I listened to everything and we saw him in concert.
Yeah.
At least once that I recall. So it is kind of funny how people kind of get locked in. But one thing that Rob and I have worked very hard on in our adult lives is making sure we never got stuck. And because we know a lot of people who never change their listening as they age, and we refuse to be those people. And so we have, with our daughter, we have explored music with her. We've had lots of different types of, we would challenge ourselves with different things and play different things all the time and be constantly inputting new media so that we never got stuck. And so with music, this was an ideal thing for us because as soon as you said, hey, how about, watching a documentary? And one of the best ways that I have found to change my opinion of someone especially a musician, is to watch their documentary. Taylor Swift, I'm looking in your general direction because I loved her documentaries. And it really, the first one I saw, I was like, oh my God, this poor girl, I just want to hug her. Like, that was a really hard thing to be in your teens and go through what she went through. And she's a badass warrior and very talented. And so it completely changed my perception, because a lot of times we are prey to the media and we just fall into whatever the media says about this person. And when you see their documentaries, you get to see their vulnerable sort of other side, and you get to hear their story somewhat. And so that
no, and in fact, I just someone had an article, I think on the Guardian in the UK, that said, if you want to explore Springsteen's back catalog, here's where to start. And they mentioned all things that nothing past 84. I mean, and so and I said, I'm not going to disagree that Darkness on the Edge of Town and Born to Run and Born in the USA and The River are all great albums, but to not say, hey, someone who if you think of Bruce Springsteen as Born in the USA, Dancing in the Dark guy, have you listened to Wrecking Ball, or have you listened to Letter to You? And I recommend, Martha, there is his latest album is all about grief.
Oh, bring it.
And the reason why I bring that up is I had a lady on the podcast that does a grief podcast, and I mentioned to her, I said, you should check this out. And after she was on the podcast, she listened to the album and she emailed me and said, it's all about grief. Can I come back and just talk about how his album, spoke to me as someone who processes bereavement?
That is amazing.
Yeah. So, all right. So Martha, this time you get to start. So you love documentaries, you love music. Yes. So you're like, okay, I'm going to see this. Had you heard anything beforehand or any thoughts about before doing the film?
Didn't know it existed. I had nothing. I was just like, okay, this is great. Let's sit down and watch. And I don't like to know even regular movies. Like I typically don't like to know about them because a lot of times that'll make me go, never mind. You know? So I was like, don't tell me. I'm just going to sit down and watch. And first of all, my biggest question of the night is, have you been in the freaking barn?
No. But, okay.
So I want to go there so bad and see a concert now.
So we're halfway through the film and we're at a movie theater watching it. And my wife, Linda, reaches over and says, you're really jealous of all those people in that barn, aren't you? And I go, yes, yes, I am so. And then if you stay all the way to the end, which is worth it, they list their names in the credits. So not only get to this personal concert, but they on the things. So no, I haven't. So
cool.
I do agree with one critic that said the barn is almost a character in itself.
It is amazing. Yeah. And it just really draws you in, and it's got its own story. Yeah, it totally is a character. Yeah. And so, I found that I found that all just very enthralling, and I loved it. And I forget what the question was though, because I have a tendency to not answer them.
No, you did answer it. So Rob, how about you going into it? You guys are about to hit play on the film, and what were your thoughts going into this?
I knew nothing about it.
Okay.
I knew nothing about it. I figured that the tone was going to be somewhere close to Nebraska. Yeah. I know he's kind of got this little more personal thing going on, which I enjoy.
Yeah.
Even though, once again, I haven't been a big listener, I figured it was going to be in that vein, but I knew nothing about it. And man, I loved it. I loved the setting. I loved the vignettes between. I do want to say one thing. The vignettes where it showed the footage of him and Patty and the kids, that was so special. It felt so personal, and it humanized them and grounded them in a way that I don't know if other films would have done that.
Yeah.
You know, like this was, you could tell, like he went to a drawer in the house and pulled out that footage and said, hey, do you think we should put this in? And she said, yeah, you know what, you're goofy in that one, use that one. Like, to me, that just was really, it really humanized him.
Yeah, I agree.
And it wasn't manipulative humanization. You know what I mean? Like, I really, really dug it. So what did I think? I thought it was great. I really enjoyed everything. And like the whole time we kept saying, wow, this barn, and wow, how cool would it be to be sitting there? He captured that. It was great.
Yeah. And so, for those of you who haven't seen the film, please go see it. Most of my audience will, but there's, you know, he has this orchestra on stage, you know, like he has strings and he has, you know, and it is not the E Street Band. There is the guy who plays the organ and the accordion is Charlie, who currently tours with the E Street Band. And then Patty, of course, is a member of the E Street Band, but everyone else are other musicians. And it's just pretty amazing, you know. And I love the line to talk about being personal, when he says, for a long time, if I loved you and if I felt a deep attachment, I would hurt you if I could.
Yeah.
It was sin.
God, that was killer. Yeah. And so vulnerable. And I think that comes with age.
Yes.
That we get to a point where we have no F's left to give, you know, and it's like,
exactly.
We just kind of go, what difference does it make? I'm just going to tell the truth, and I'm just going to put it out there. And I absolutely loved that element of it also. And that was a really painful line. It was really hard. That I can't even imagine having to say something like that publicly, you know, admitting something like that.
Yeah. And, you know, when he wrote his autobiography, I had a couple of things I wanted to know. One, I wanted to know about him breaking up the E Street Band. And I was curious about his first marriage, because you don't hear a lot about that, you know, Julianne Phillips. And in the autobiography, he made it very clear it was totally his fault. That, you know, he talked about, he was at a restaurant across the table looking at her going, she is absolutely beautiful. She is everything you could want in a wife. And the moment she knows who I really am, she is going to dump me.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he could not. And then, you know, luckily, you know, he found Patty, or Patty found him. And, you know, when you hear the stories, like one of my favorite stories he tells is, musicians stay up late, go to bed late, get up late. Right.
Yeah.
And Patty pulled him aside and said, you're missing it. The morning is when they're most engaged. The morning is when they're getting off to school. When they come home from school, they're going to be tired. You sleeping in, you are missing their childhood. And he goes, what do you want me to do? She goes, learn how to cook breakfast. And he said, so I learned how to make pancakes. I learned how to shortcuts. He said, to this day, if the music business goes to hell, I can make a living being a short order breakfast cook.
That's
my gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Jesse, is that story in his book?
Yes. Yeah.
Because it's funny, because we're big readers.
Yeah.
And this summer, one of the projects we did, we kind of remodeled upstairs.
Yeah.
And we put in a turntable.
Yeah.
And made it kind of a music area.
Yeah.
Which is cool. And we
mean our living room?
Our living room. And we put in,
not upstairs.
We put in a bunch of books about musicians. Of course, there's more than one Wilco book. Surprise coming from us. But I actually was planning to buy his autobiography, because I heard it's a hell of a book. And that story alone, I'm like, you got me.
Yeah, it is. And I'll tell you the other one, Little Steven just put out his book, and he talks about The Sopranos. He talks about a lot of things. He talks about apartheid. And so it's another very interesting book.
We are huge fans, so we'll get that as well.
All right, so we get into the movie. I you know, being the way we are, I just want to have a general thought. I'm not going to go through song by song, but is there?
I have my 5.
Okay, good, perfect.
But we don't have to go song by song. That's okay.
No. Let's go. I'd love to hear some of your favorite songs and let's talk about why. And we'll take turns.
Can I go first?
Yes, obviously.
And I'm going to tell you the one that I am the most obsessed with, and I can't stop hearing it. Like I sing it. Lies You Told Me.
Oh, wow.
Yes. I adore that. That is my number 1 on there. Love.
Yeah.
And the visual, like I can feel the Stones when he sings about the Stones in his belt. I'm like, oh my God, you could feel that. Like you could totally like that. It was just, to me, that song is absolutely astounding.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Rob, how about you? You got one you want to talk about?
Oh boy. I'm not good with the names of songs.
That's okay.
Never have been. I will say that the one she mentioned was one that what's the first song? Is it Tucson Train?
Tucson Train. I have that
Tucson
one.
Train is third, but that's the one. Yeah.
We love that one.
That one hits me right on. See, when I listen to music, I don't hear the lyrics necessarily first. I hear the music.
Yes.
It's always been like that. Martha hears the lyrics first and then hears the music. With this, I've heard the words and I heard them right away. And I was like, it was just working for me. So I heard the music, but I really heard the words from the word go. Not, he doesn't use the word go, but from the beginning of the song, and it just really captured me. So that one, I'm gonna give a big shout out to. I love that song.
Yeah, I have that one down also.
Yeah, I have that is one of my favorite songs on there, and it is there is a whole movie in that one song.
Yeah.
I just I can see that where he's done something to screw up.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's an addiction problem. I don't know if it's a gambling problem. I don't know if he cheated on her. I don't know what he done. I don't know if he was, horrible. And you just could see him. He's moved there and he's rebuilt his life, right? He talked about hard work will clear your mind and body. The hard sun will burn out the pain. And he says, if you're looking for me, tell him, buddy, I'm waiting down at the station, just praying to the 515. And you could just see, I hear the conversation to his significant other. Just give me a weekend. Just give me a weekend. Come here. I'm going to show her a man can change. And what I love about it is we don't know if she shows up.
Right.
He doesn't know if she's coming either.
Yeah.
He's asked her to come. He says, and he's there praying for it. And I just love that story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that connected for me so much is there was so much raw emotion and that open-endedness of it. I love that feeling. It's kind of like the movie Before Sunrise, it got, as you watch it, you get to the end of it and you're like, your heart's breaking. You don't actually know what's going to happen. You think you do, like, oh, they went their separate ways, but you're like, that's not the end. And that's how it felt to me. This was Before Sunrise. You know what I mean? And if it had a sequel, I think the sequel would be like Before Sunset, where you're left in that same, like, this is life.
They had a sequel that was called After Sunset.
No, Before Sunrise, Before Sunset.
I thought I was so right this time.
Yeah. And actually, and actually they were supposed to do another one, but Ethan Hawke, I believe, no, Julie Delpy, I think, is the one that said she's not interested in being in any more films. So we're never going to get that last chapter. It hurts, but that's how this was for me. It did remind me of that.
Let's pick another one you want to talk about.
Okay. I love Hello Sunshine, Won't You Stay? You can see all mine are like emo. They're all no. They're all like emo dirges, but I just love them. And those are the ones that speak to my heart. Like I want something that I can relate to in some way. I love story. So all of the ones I picked, like Somewhere North of Nashville.
Oh, Great
love.
one. Yeah.
Yeah,
But they're
love
all
that one.
story, and to
Yeah.
me that makes me happy, and the lyrics are very, very important to me. Rob, the one that you loved was the one about the actor guy or the
Drive
stunt guy, the
Fast.
stunt
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
Drive Fast. Yeah, once again, story. And I know a lot about like film history and that. So when he's taught some of the things he's talking about, when he talks about having the pin in his hip and all that, I'm just like, yeah, man, this is a stunt man. Then he talks about how he drank for years off of one fight with John Wayne in a movie.
Yes.
And I'm like, there's so many stuntmen that have stories like that. Like he really captured this.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that the line,
really
like in Western Stars, right? I woke up, my boots are still on.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I took that as a metaphor that I'm still alive. I just had someone on Ken Rosen's blog. He had someone that said that it's an alcoholic and that they're actually waking up after passing out with their boots on.
That I could see that. Yeah,
that makes sense.
I really did. Yeah. I love you as you're talking about Hello Sunshine, right? I always love a lonely town, those empty streets, no one around. You fall in love with lonely and you end up that way. Hello Sunshine, won't you stay?
Yeah.
Very much a song about depression.
Oh, totally.
A totally song about
Look how she lights up when she's talking about depression. Look at that.
No, but it's true.
No, I don't even have depression, but it is. There's something about that rawness, and there's something about getting into that part of yourself. And he said the thing about, we can all like love the blues, but we can't stay there. Like we can get stuck in. I don't remember the exact words, but he was like, I don't know if you have them up there, but where he talks about getting stuck in the blues. But to me, that was really powerful too, because it is it can be addicting, to steep yourself in the things that keep you sad, and it's really hard to let that go.
It's I always liked my walking shoes, but you can get a little too fond of the blues. You walk too far, you walk away. Hello Sunshine, won't you stay? A lot there to unpack, right?
Yes. Absolutely.
I will tell you, as someone who has gone through hard times. I spent 9 months unemployed. It's really easy to get caught in that blues.
Yeah.
And no matter how much you're a positive and like, oh, it's going to be okay. It is, you can get a little too fond of the blues. I totally agree with that.
For sure. For sure.
I also love Sleepy Joe's Cafe. A lot of Springsteen fans don't like that, but I think that's a happy little.
That's the only one that I don't like at all.
That's the one I hate.
That is, I am a rarity. Most fans are like you; they don't like it at all. And
Not at all.
I guess maybe just I love the happiness of it. So, but that's interesting.
Yeah.
Both of you didn't like that one.
We couldn't even sit, like we just listened to the album again. Yeah. Well, I guess not. We were listening on Spotify or something.
We listened, Martha, you don't even know. That was the actual soundtrack from the
never
film.
mind. We were listening to the soundtrack.
And then the last thing we listened to was the album.
Yeah.
The regular album.
So when that song came on, I was like, and he's going, and I go, all right, turn it off. I can't, we can't even sit through it. But you know what it is? It's rockabilly, and I can't do rockabilly. I just can't do it. And so you're like, it's cheerful. I'm like, give me my go back to my depression dirges. But I want to feel something, and I want to connect to the words and the music, and that just did not fly for me. But Rhinestone Cowboy, fun. Happy song.
So you guys didn't know that was coming, correct?
No, and we loved
and it's one of our family songs. It's like one of our songs that we all dance to and crank up every time we hear it. We love that song. And so that was a really fun,
really great
surprise. because we were like, oh, look, and Molly was in the room for that part of the documentary. And so she was like, oh my God, like, so we had to crank it up and dance around, but it was like, that was a really fun treat for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I think if, and coulda, woulda, shoulda, but if country radio was different than it is modern, I could see that being a hit back in the day, because it was a great cover version.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. I had been spoiled. I knew it was coming, but the Clay and Mary were with me, didn't know, nor did Linda, and all three of them lit up just to have him do that version. As a fan, I would have loved him to do 3 or 4 more songs that weren't on the album with that band, and just to have him doing kind of like when he did the Seeger sessions. Originally, when he toured, he started doing other E Street and Nebraska songs with that band and that style.
Oh,
and it would have
yeah,
been fun.
sure.
Yeah. I agree with you that theme wise, this is a lot like Nebraska.
Yeah.
Now,
I need to listen to that then.
Yeah,
that's
now,
a great
I'm
album.
gonna really like that. Okay.
Yeah. Now the difference is Nebraska was, in the story, Martha, is he was working on the album after The River. He was working on an album and he did a demo tape. And the E Street band started working on him, and Little Steven said, the album is here. This demo tape you've done is the album. We don't need to play on this. And so he went to, Columbia and said, hey, I want to put this out. And they're like, really? But when you're Bruce Springsteen, you get it. And it is many people that love punk, people that love grunge will often mention Nebraska as their favorite album.
Okay.
Yeah,
And I
wonder
grunge.
why that hit me.
Yeah, exactly.
I love some punk, but I love a lot of grunge. A lot of grunge. So I like that. Okay.
So I love the TV show Justified, based off Elmer Leonard's, books. And I say that this album, and therefore movie, feels like a collection of Elmer Leonard short stories. Okay. Like, cool. This is very much a collection of stories.
Yeah.
That and some interesting characters and some not likable characters, right? The hitchhiking, that where it starts, where he's got that high voice, and just the idea, I'm just traveling the road and meeting people and just going to see, is beautiful. You talked about the vignettes. Go a little bit.
I love those. Love
seeing the horses and the different, the beautiful desert was absolutely a beautiful film. I agree. Right?
Yeah. It's funny because I was reading a review of it, and they were kind of saying that they didn't think that he was a good enough filmmaker for what happened here. They were like, like those vignettes were really good, but it would have his legacy should have a better filmmaker at the helm.
Yeah.
I actually kind of disagree. I think this was such a personal thing. And I think those vignettes, they didn't seem like B-roll stock footage. It seemed like he was like, hey, I want to get some shots of the horses. I think it'll be cool here. And I'm going to put my voice over it saying these things. It just really drew me in. I felt like I was spending the night with Bruce, not putting it on,
Yeah, I love the rawness of it. And to me, I don't like things too polished. I don't like things to look so commercialized. And I want it to be him. I want it to be his voice. I want it to be his eye, and show me your world, that's what I love that.
And the other director, Tom Zimmerny, has done many documentaries, not just on Bruce, but he did a really good Elvis documentary that was on HBO. And so, when Bruce was promoting the film, he said that really Tom did most of the work, and he was just in the editing room giving him suggestions and talk. And Tom said, no, you're the co-director. You did enough that I think this is. I think in a lot of ways, this is a trilogy. His autobiography shares a lot about himself. Then he did the Broadway show, which is available on Netflix, where he talks kind of, the first half is all about his life. Second half is more about his career and other things. And then this Western Stars, I think, make up a trilogy of him sharing himself to his audience.
All right,
Very
Rob,
cool.
we've got a mission now to read the autobiography and then watch the
Well,
other documentary.
after you guys watch Netflix, we'll have you back on.
Okay.
Because it is basically a one-man show, and he talks between the songs and tells stories that from his autobiography.
I would love that.
A thing that I think is hilarious is he tells the story in the Obama and podcast that, and President Obama said that he reached out to Bruce and said, hey, it's 8 years, my administration's ending. I'd really like to do something for the people that have been with me. Would you be willing to perform? And Bruce said, yeah. He said, and so he's thinking, I can't bring the E Street Band. It's just intimate. What do I do? And so he had just published his autobiography. So he kind of did a show for the White House staff where he read a little bit from the autobiography, sang a little bit, did this. And afterwards, they said that President Obama went up to him and said, you should take that on the road. He says, I appreciate you sharing it with my staff, but this is too good for you not to share it.
Oh, wow.
And later, so the other thing I love is, Hamilton started as a thing at the Obama White House where they did that. So I'm like, Barack has done, that's two different Broadway plays that Barack has done his part. Maybe his other gig could be a Broadway producer.
Yeah, he could be like a content creator also. Yeah.
Anything else that you guys want to bring up or talk about on the film?
I don't think so. I just loved it. I loved the intimacy of it. I loved the set, like the everything. I mean, I loved seeing him perform with Patty and his joy around that, like I just loved all of it. And as someone who was really seeing him for the first time, it was very powerful, and he was extremely real and endearing, and I want to see more, and I want to hear more. So that's a win.
That's good.
That's
Rob,
a win.
anything?
Yeah. This definitely made me a fan of this part of what he does. It's kind of like the Beatles. With the Beatles, the first albums, like people love those first albums. I was always the latter half.
Right.
And I think that's happened here. The latter half, I'm way more interested in.
Yeah.
Even though I can really appreciate, and like The River, it's a great album. It's just not my album.
Right.
You know what I mean? Even though that one's closer to my album.
Yeah.
Born to Run, not my album.
Right.
Great album, not my album.
Yeah.
Sleepy Joe's Cafe actually represents kind of what I don't like with his music.
Right.
Which is, I always say it's there's like a 50s bent to it.
Yes.
When it sounds like 50s music, I completely tune out. It just sounds the same to me. It's not interesting. This was more like Dylan doing Nashville Skyline.
Yeah.
It was more like Lou Reed digging into New York. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I don't know if you know that album, or Magic and Lost. That's a better example.
Yeah.
It's more like that, which that stuff, and I'm not one. Like Martha loves to like, ooh, is this one depressing? Boom, I'm on it.
Yeah.
I usually, like when you said, oh, if you like punk, you like, yeah, I like my guitars loud and my guys screaming, and I like a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe there's not a lot of emotional depth to some of those bands. I don't care because I hear the music first.
Right.
This is the other part of me. I loved it. I would love to see Jeff Tweedy do these songs because I'm a Wilco fan. But I really did. Yeah, I really, really, truly enjoyed this. I would definitely watch it again. The album, the regular album, I like more than this live one now that I've listened to them together.
Yeah.
But I think it's because it draws me in even more. It's even more intimate. It's him with a guitar. It's like it really got me.
Yeah. What's interesting is a couple people after Western Stars came out, like I said, the album came out in June. A couple people were unhappy with it, and I specifically had someone on the podcast, beautiful interview. I can't think of her name right now, but she's like, I'm saying it's a good album, but it isn't the album I wanted. I wanted an angry, I hate Donald Trump, I hate what's going on album. I wanted this mad political Bruce to speak magic the way he did about the Bush administration, right? And that wasn't what he wanted to put out.
Yeah.
I heard that from a couple of people, and then after seeing the film, they love the album more because they all of a sudden, this is opening up to see part of his soul, to part of his being. And I do agree with you that those scenes where they've set the camera up and he's got his cowboy hat and he's flirting with Patty and they're back and forth and they look so young. That's just, it is really, you're like, oh, how perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. I did want to mention, I find that when he says, so you walk on in pursuit of these better questions, tenderly putting one foot in front of the other through the dark, because that's where the next morning is, is such a powerful statement. I think about that. You walk on through the dark because that's where the next morning is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what I love. Like when I know I get teased for the depressing things, but it's not about the depressing part. It's about the light at the end of the tunnel. It's about the hope that comes after that. And which is why I do why I focus on bereavement and transition. I am not a grief counselor.
Right.
I'm a coach for someone who's coming out of the grief and is going, what do I want this next chapter to look like?
Yeah.
Here I am. I now see that I have to put a foot in front of the other. What do I want to do? And I help them find their way out of that darkness. And so it's to me, I see hope. I see light. I see that depth of pain that only growth comes, that's where the growth comes. That's where the healing comes. That's where the hope and everything else comes. And you can't have those things without this. And,
like what we often talk about, Linda lost her dad first and then she lost her mom, and then I lost my stepdad, then my dad, and my mom's still with us. But, things are never the same, but there becomes a new normal.
Exactly.
And so what's the new normal? That's what I hear you, Martha, right? Is okay.
Yeah.
What is your new normal? What is your going to be? And you will never stop mourning them. You will always miss them, but there is a new normal in everything that's good.
And there is hope in that. And and they would want you. They wouldn't want you to be done. Like that's not like, no one's wishing for that,
Exactly.
Everybody wants you to take that step and be okay and find your new path. And so, I love that line that Bruce said, because it's 100% true, that it's like that comes, then we get that morning.
Yeah.
We get the morning.
All right. So, Pod Life 2 is due out soon, correct?
It took a while to get the chapters in.
So
editing is taking a while.
We thought it was going to come out now, but we're still putting finishing touches on it. I don't know if we're going to get it out before
fantastic
the holidays, but it is
so good.
It's really good. We have some we haven't even announced who's on it.
Yeah.
Or who's in it.
Yeah.
Well, you can name some.
I can name a
right
few
now.
people. If my brain is going to function here.
So for what it is, while you're thinking, so Pod Life was a book that I was proud to be part of. Rob and the team put together people telling their podcast stories. Here is why I became a podcaster. Here's my secret origin being a podcaster. And we collected, and it was a beautiful collection of wonderful stories. As diverse as the podcast world is, that's how diverse the book was. And so I loved all the stories. And so afterwards, people came up and like, well, God, why didn't I get a chance to do this? Why didn't I get a chance to do this? And so, so you guys are doing volume 2.
Yes.
And possibly 3, because we
Yes.
have quite a few people, but
yeah, that's the thing. We were going to launch 2 and 3 at the same time because we had so many people say they wanted to do it, and they kept writing and saying they were going to do it, and blah, blah, blah. And then
life.
And
then life happens.
And even at this point, we have probably 8 of them that are simmering for this volume that even a week ago said, okay, I'm still working on it. I'm like, oh my God. Well, we're not getting it out October 31st. That's not happening.
Or November 30th.
And I think of J. Michael Stravinsky, right? He often says, art is never finished, it's only abandoned. So I feel like telling them like, okay, just it is what it is. This is,
just give us your story.
Give us your story and that'll be good.
The reason I hesitated on names is I'm drawing a blank on some of their shows.
Okay.
Like, because a lot of them, it's like me. If you said, oh, it's Rob Southgate.
Yeah.
What show do you pick? Or could you remember? Off the top of my head, I'm not able to remember. I can remember a few though.
Okay.
Jerry Pauly, who is from Hillbilly Horror Stories.
Oh, nice.
Which is a great podcast. His in fact, you can't see it on here. You can see it, Jesse. I've got his book sitting here. And he sent me one of those, and then he sent me a really great chapter. Brandon Wentz, he is from this is why the Crit Show, that's what it's called. And it's a D&D podcast. It's hilarious. And here's the really crazy thing. One of their first episodes was done at our podcast marathon in Indiana. And they were great. And afterwards, we're like, you guys have a great show. Well, they have gone on to be pretty successful with it.
Good.
Daphne Tull, who was on our Women in Podcasting Festival.
Nice.
Kristen Gieman, who she had some cred here. She's got a PhD and she's on Capes and Lunatics, which was with Southgate Media Group.
Yes.
And then we've got Jim Harold, who does the Paranormal podcast.
Oh, nice.
That's a big name. I mean, he's like the godfather of paranormal podcasting.
He's been, we've been listening to him for decades.
Forever. Yeah. In fact, I would say he was one of the inspirations for us doing this. And he gave us a chapter. And he said his only caveat was he wanted to make sure that he could use it for something else at some point, because he goes, I think I wrote a really good chapter and I think I might want to be able to use it. I was like, yeah, it's all yours, man. But
that's
wow, what an honor.
That is great.
Yeah. So, I mean, those
There's
are just some of the names.
There's a
ton.
Yeah.
Good.
Some are people that were with us when we closed. Some of them closed. I still know how to call it that.
We did. We transitioned.
Yeah, we're transitioning.
when 2.0 was kicking in.
Yes.
Some were with us long ago in what was really the 1.0, the 0.5 of Southgate Group. And then there's a bunch that like we know from events we did or that just reached out. It's such a great mix, though. I was reading through the chapters again recently, waiting for these other ones to show up, and there's so many good chapters. So that's great. Pod Life 2. So I'm gonna cut I could go on forever when it gets to the plugs. I'm gonna cut it short. Here's how I'm gonna cut it. Follow me. You can follow me on Twitter at @rsouthgate. You can follow me on Instagram at Rob Southgate. Or if you follow us, Southgate Media Group, we're on Facebook under Southgate Media Group, or on Twitter and Instagram at SMG Pods. Now, what we're putting on there is we're posting like shows that were with us. We're putting their episodes on. We're putting old episodes on, but that's also where we're going to announce things like when I do things with this consulting business for podcasters that want to do stuff, when we have new things for Broken to Brave, when Molly's show Read Between the Lines has new episodes or special events or giveaways. That's where it's going to go. And when Jesse has something special, it's going to go on there. And in fact, Jesse, I just remembered I owe you some questions that I recorded with you.
Yes, you did. Yes.
So that's going to be something special for your listeners.
Absolutely.
It's a great little interview that we did. So that will be coming to you in the next couple of days.
Good. And so, yes. And so you can reach both Martha and Rob through that. I do, I could have a whole episode. In fact, we should do this, Martha, talking about your Broken to Brave and this journey you've gone on, talk about embracing your fears and facing them head first, is just so strong. All right. So
can I say something on that, Jesse? Just really quick.
Please.
One thing, if you don't subscribe to the Patreon, you wouldn't know this, but every episode she picks a song that relates. So she has a Spotify playlist of Broken to Brave music, and it is one of my favorate playlists on Spotify.
And it's public.
Awesome.
That's
it's public.
Available.
Very nice. All right. So couple of months, we'll have you back on and we'll do Bruce on Broadway.
Awesome.
And so that we'll do that. And so
we'll
and
get
I don't
reading.
know.
We got to read first.
Yeah, you guys, and then maybe whatever you guys do in the future, I'm there for you if you need me.
You're
to
in.
Be a guest,
you're already in, Jesse.
To be a guest, to be to help promote.
Yeah.
I love you both. I love Molly. You feel like family to me, and you always
you are
totally
absolutely
how we feel,
family, and you are always going to be the top of the list. And we don't have to say, do we have to say that to everybody? We're just saying it to Jesse.
Okay.
You're the top of the list, Jesse.
Okay.
No, wait, don't tell Charles. You're friends with Charles.
That's
I don't want him to feel bad. Charles, you're top of the list.
You're top of the list too. Yeah,
exactly.
But we appreciate you. We appreciate your support. We love you. We love what you do and who you are as a person. And we look forward to many things, whatever projects. Future.
And I do. I will,
things.
And I may end up cutting this out, but I will share. When Rob reached out and said, "Hey, we're thinking about taking a step back," and I'm like, okay, but we can still be there for each other. And he goes, absolutely. Yes. Don't even question it, Jesse, that I will always be here for you. And I said, I hope you guys know I'll always be there for you. So I appreciate
100%. 100%.
Good.
That will never change.
Yeah.
And
very nice.
Even if we close down other aspects, we're still friends.
We're always going to,
and we're
always working on something. There's always something.
Yes.
Yeah. And we didn't even reveal the real secret stuff here. We just
eventually there are going to be really cool podcast projects.
Yes.
That we will be able to collaborate a little.
We haven't even talked about, and Molly, quite an up and coming actress.
Yes.
Before the pandemic, and I know this will start again with her.
Yeah, she's been doing lots of amazing auditions that we're not allowed to talk about.
Sure, of course.
But really, really cool things she's had opportunities
That's great.
to audition for. And so we're just kind of like in that mode of, okay, you're a teenager, we're in no hurry.
Exactly.
Slow down.
Very nice.
But she's in her podcast, she works with so many publishers now, and they just contact her. She has publicists calling her, emailing her daily.
That's so awesome.
And saying,
can
you meet with
authors.
this one? And can you meet with that one? And how about this one? And she's like, give me them all,
Yeah,
so she's she loves it. And she's been doing really well.
It's funny. I was talking to an author the other day, a horror author, and I happened to mention that she does this. And I mentioned, you know me, I was plugging away.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh yeah, she did, she had Daniel Krauss on, and he like almost passed out. He's like, she got to talk to Daniel Krauss. I'm like, and John Scalzi. And I'm like, but I said, he goes, she got to talk to Daniel Krause. I was like, yeah, both times. The second time he requested her.
Yes.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Oh
yeah.
my God.
Yeah,
And
she
then,
does a lot of them. A lot of the authors come back and they'll say, you're my favorite
Yeah.
one. I always go here first when my books come out. So
Well,
yeah.
she's
while
pretty incredible.
while we're catching up, I just got confirmation. The guy who wrote a John Hyatt biography
Oh.
is Have a Little Faith, the John Hyatt story.
Mm-hmm.
I reached out to him via Twitter and he went, "Oh yeah, I'd love to be on your podcast."
Oh,
So
that's
he's,
awesome.
Yeah, he's going to be on December 1st. We're going to talk.
Fantastic.
So we're going to talk about the book and promote that. So that's,
oh my gosh, I love it.
Yeah,
that's great. I can't wait to hear that.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Very cool.
All right, listeners, go get vaccinated.
Yes.
Just, we need to get back to normal. We want to go hear live music.
Yeah.
Yes. Till then, wear your mask, wash your hands, and let's all be good to each other, because that's the only way we're going to get through this.
Yes.
Thank you, Martha. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you. And we're part of the Pfizer crew.
Yay. Thank you, listeners. We'll talk to you
soon. Check out Broken to Brave.
I was saying, thank you guys. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks,
Bye.
Jesse.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Jesse.
Doing a podcast at times can be a one-way conversation, and I hate that. So please let me know what you like and don't like about the work I'm doing. You can reach the podcast via email at setlistingbruce@gmail.com. The show is on Twitter at setlistingbruce, and my personal Twitter is at jessejacksondfw. We have a website, www.setlistingbruce.com. From there, you can find links to other Springsteen podcasts, as well as other music-themed podcasts. We have a page devoted to our own SLB All-Star Band. These are guests who have been on the podcast more than 3 times. There is a link to our store where you can purchase Set Listing Bruce shirts, as well as a Mary Question t-shirt. There is a link to our Patreon page where you can sign up to help support the podcast financially. We have different levels and different rewards based on your support. If you don't have any extra cash, and right now, who does? You can support the podcast by subscribing via your favorite podcast player and leaving us a review. The more reviews we have, the easier it is for people to find us. And please tell a friend about the podcast, especially if they love Bruce or music, because it will make a difference.
You just heard the fun talking, hard rocking, music loving, album ranking, fan thinking, joy spreading, lyric reading, story sharing podcast that is the one, the only Set Listing Bruce. The theme for Set Listing Bruce was written by David Rosen, used by permission.